Welcome to Confirmation Bias, presented by the League Ambassadors.
I'm Ambassador Kenny Ken, and it appears as if all NBA head coaches' favorite color is green, with envy, and that's my confirmation bias.
It wasn't. I'm Ambassador D.A.D, and Ben Simmons very well may be the Rookie of the Year, but that does not mean he is the best rookie. That is Donovan Mitchell, and that's my confirmation bias.
Shout out. I want to give a shout out to Ryan Ingham over across the pond. You need to take a flight to Detroit and go get your boy. He need a hug from all Patriot fans. And that's my confirmation bias.
And I'm Ambassador Chef Curry. Last summer, I went on a job interview, and the final question they asked me was, what do I do with my spare time? And did I tell them that I contribute to an uncensored, racially driven vodcast that allows alcohol consumption unchecked? Of course not, because that's something that they should have noticed on my resume. And that's my confirmation bias.
Welcome to Confirmation Bias, hosted by the League Ambassadors. As a reminder, please check us out across all social media platforms on our handle at The League AM and our website, theleagueam.com, where you can find all of our content, our flagship football podcast, 32 Kings Road, and our Blogspot diplomatic community, where you, the fan, can spit your bars and drop your hot fire as it pertains to the world of sports. Those of you who are watching us now on Facebook Live, please remember to submit any questions or comments. At the end of our show, we'll attempt to address them in our segment, Diplomatic Immunity. And please download Confirmation Bias. Subscribe to the podcast wherever it is that you watch or listen to podcasts. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is under the banner League Ambassadors. This is episode 48. Got a very interesting show for you today. We will discuss the most recent NBA exits. We will also discuss the conference finals in the NBA and kind of rapey rocket scientist. So let's get started with hot topics. Bastard Kenny Ken, what's today's math, God?
Okay. First, let's do our NBA postmortem. When we last left, we figured that we would be doing this for 3 teams, and there are 3 teams that are among the dearly departed in the NBA. We will first start in the Eastern Conference, the most recent team to leave, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers, who I think, you know what, they deserve a little bit of a golf clap on this season. They bowed out last night. Really shouldn't have. I thought they were actually going to take it, but they lost 4-1 in the series. It was a great game, great fourth quarter last night to the Boston Celtics. I'll start with you, Red O. What went wrong for Philly in that series?
Offense and your rookie's offense. Coach, they were outcoached. They took the ball out of the hand of somebody who needs to have the ball in his hand, and there was no adjustment to that. But they are close. You know, this is something where you look at and you say, with some experience, this same team probably gets past to the next round.
You agree with that, Dad?
The second part, yeah, I think that's another question that we're going to address. My thing is, freaking Brad Stevens is a hell of a coach. Mm-hmm. And not only did they get out-coached, but a part of coaching is scheming. And what the Celtics did well is they realized that when the Sixers would take the ball out, Embiid would take the ball out most of the time. So what they would do is since he's jogging up and Simmons is bringing the ball up, they would sag whoever is playing him at the free throw line and extend himself so he can't have that early drive.
Yeah.
And then once they recuperate, everyone's in position, and then it's harder for him to get to those shots. And him not being able to hit an outside shot or take anything over 18 feet
Right.
really hindered them in the series.
Right. Kev, can Philly come back with this exact same squad and win the East next year?
Win the East? No, I think they come up slightly short. They probably would. I think they probably get to the conference finals. I think what's missing though is that they need some athleticism from their 1 and 2 guard spot. And the number one person we all think of is the number one pick,
Right.
Markelle Fultz. He a healthy scratch, a DNP in the playoffs, and you're the number one pick. They got to get him on the court, man. And I think another one of their issues is that let's say their fairer-skinned brothers on that team were not as athletic as the guys that Boston was putting out there. I think they definitely had trouble. Their international players struggled on defense. I think they got to get a little bit more athletic in the guard spots. But the process, those pillars are in place, and I think they're going to be here for years to come.
Well, Kev brought something up. I want to ask you, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
How much is Philly kicking themselves that they could have Tatum instead of Fultz
Yikes.
on that squad?
Right. Yeah, but I mean, you got to think about it. And it could have worked actually, because because you bring Covington off the bench and Tatum is the guy. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of teams might be kicking themselves, and by a lot, I mean every team that could have taken Jason Tatum that didn't. He has gotten better.
Do you mean the Lakers?
He has gotten.
They were the number 2.
The man did say every team.
He has gotten. What's interesting about Tatum is that he has gotten better as a rookie as the season has gone on. We saw Ben Simmons. I think two things. He hit a rookie wall, but then also Brad Stevens. He pulled his card. But Jason Tatum, I mean, I think he set the NBA record, or he's tied the NBA record for most consecutive 20-point games in a row in the playoffs as a rookie. So yeah, I mean, I tend to agree there. I think you're right, Kevin. I think they, as presently situated, they are an Eastern Conference Final team. We'll see what they do in the offseason.
The thing is, when you have two players like that, you don't have to do much. You just got to figure out what you need and try and go get it. That makes a GM job a lot easier.
Yeah. Kev, what were you going to say?
When you talked about the same personnel. Does that include the coach? Because, he was going up against Brad Stevens, but he made some just blunders in terms of personnel and who you get the ball to in the final seconds. I think it's interesting to see that his contract is up at the end of next season. So if this team comes back and for some reason they fall short because of coaching, I think we look at him too.
Yeah, I definitely think he was, pardon the pun, a little green. But I think it's nothing that he can't learn from.
But it's not him that's running into Embiid on the inbounds ball play, knocking people over and having JJ Redick turn the ball over. That's not him. Sometimes you got to put the accountability on the players.
Right, because I mean, two of those 4 losses came down to final plays in which execution, experience matters. I honestly, last night I would have liked to have seen Embiid go up a little bit stronger.
On the last play.
He was
expecting to get fouled, and I think they did a great job swallowing their whistle the last.
Which is why I said more experience, because he would know that they're not calling that in the playoffs.
Exactly. You gotta go take that. Let's head west. Let's start with the Utah Jazz. Who, again, speaking of good coaches, Brad Stevens, I believe his counterpart is Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio from Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, a.k.a. Quinn Snyder. I think he's a great coach. Utah went down to the Houston Rockets. Granted, they didn't have Ricky Rubio. They lost Dante Exum midway through the series, but we definitely, not only in this series, but just throughout the entire playoffs, I think America now knows who Donovan Mitchell is, and that guy is going to be a problem. Kevin, what went wrong for Utah? Why couldn't they get over the hump against the Houston Rockets?
They just didn't have enough firepower, and it didn't help that Ricky Rubio was out. I mean, he was playing well in the previous series. He was injured. Then Mitchell always has to have the ball in his hands. But I'm going to go back to what I said when we did the playoff preview, and y'all laughed at me. But they need more from Rudy Gobert. I don't care if he's a defensive player. I don't care about any of that. You have that much size and that much of a mismatch down in the post. He was a non-factor. And you watch Kobe showed it on detail how much he was able to seal, get that mismatch the same way Karl Anthony Towns did, and they did not give him the ball. Whether they didn't think he was able or he didn't think he was able, they weren't going down in the post. And you need a post presence if you're going to win in the Western Conference.
Well, I think you kind of alluded to that. I think the loss of Ricky Rubio was actually really crucial. Not only did it hurt Rudy Gobert in the half court, but I think in transition it took out Derek Favors. Derek Favors was quiet as a church mouse.
It changed the whole complexion of their team when he went down. Quiet as kept.
Yep.
Because, Shaq always says it. I don't dribble up the court. You got to pass me the ball.
Right.
Right. Rudy can't make them pass it to him in a post.
Right.
And as great as Donovan was, like Kevin said, him having to have the ball more doesn't allow him to attack from the wing and slash and actually just preserve himself and be able to go get it. I mean, he did have a 22-point quarter in game in third quarter.
He outscored the Rockets in Game 5 in the third quarter.
But that's a recipe for disaster when you have to do everything. And it would have been nice if Exum didn't get hurt because he could attempt to live up to his expectations of being a point guard and kind of take or alleviate some of that stress and responsibility off of Mitchell. But Ricky Rubio was by far the key because when he was in there for the short period of time, you can see there was a little difference.
So let me stay with you then. Do they have all the pieces that they need to actually be a Western Conference contender as presently situated?
No. What they lack is someone else who can get their own shot, and that was wildly apparent through this series.
Well, Derek Favors is a free agent this offseason,
and I think he's gone.
And they will have some money to spend. So
Aaron Gordon,
we'll see. Aaron Gordon, he's a restricted free agent.
Is he restricted?
He's restricted. He's
get his own shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think
he's a floor runner.
If Jay Crowder, honestly, Jay Crowder for me was a big disappointment in this series because I think
he can't get his own. He plays well in the flow. He's a good.
Yeah, but he averaged 10 points in the series. I think if he averages 15, I think it's a different series.
15?
Well, because there's no Ricky Rubio.
Yeah, exactly.
The final team in the Western Conference that bowed out gracefully was the New Orleans Pelicans, and I think probably the biggest, I know for me, the biggest what if, and I'll go to you, Red O. If DeMarcus Cousins is playing in this series, is this a different series, Red O?
We will never know.
Don't give me that Shaquille O'Neal bailout answer.
I mean, no, for real, it's real because
Family Flu was good answer.
They actually started playing better after he went down. I mean, they were playing good when they finally got it together, but Anthony Davis started playing better. He went back to those ridiculous numbers that he used to have.
But he was having ridiculous numbers with DeMarcus. Instead of it being 31, it was more 24, 25. But then you were still getting DeMarcus's points plus his production on the glass. I just wonder, they would have killed Golden State on the glass, and you wouldn't be able to play DeMarcus off the floor with them.
Maybe. But that's the thing, like Omar said, I'd like to see them together in the playoffs.
I think Golden State still wins.
It's a different series, but like you were alluding to, they wouldn't be able to play him off the court. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if you can play both of them if they go to their death lineup and start running. Because they attempted to try and run with them, and they shot almost as many threes as they did.
Well, here's the thing. DeMarcus played most of the season. You know the team that led the NBA in pace this year? The New Orleans Pelicans. So, that's sort of that's the marvel, I think, of having a DeMarcus Cousins. Kevin, DeMarcus is a free agent. He's popped his Achilles. What's the right offer for him? And consider this, Kevin. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 11 teams that have at least 20 mil in cap space this summer. If you're New Orleans, Dell Demps, what's the right offer?
I hate to say it because I would love to see Twin Towers in the NBA again, but they can get far without him. I think you flip Cousins if you can and try to get some more depth. I mean, we saw the emergence of Drew Holiday you can get buy-in by Rajon Rondo. I think they got a good core that they can get some depth like we've seen it to help teams like a Toronto go far, but not as far as they should have. You're gonna need that sixth, seventh, eighth option going into the playoffs when your stars struggle. And I think that's the next step for them to compete in the West, where you got Golden State, who's one of the deepest teams we've ever seen, Houston, who's on their way up. If they want to compete, they got to get deeper instead of bigger on their front court.
My thing is, I don't think the market for DeMarcus Cousins is going to be all that big. I don't. He was considered a black sheep to a lot of teams already.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's coming off the ACL.
The Achilles.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's going to be a huge market for him. Somebody's going to do it, but I don't think like the sign and trade possibility. I don't know if people are going to give up assets for him. I don't think that's going to happen.
And considering, Devin, before you answer, it's not like if they don't sign him or they let him walk that it creates cap space for them. They would basically be going over the cap to re-sign him. So knowing that, how does that influence your decision on what you offer him or what you do with DeMarcus?
See, the thing with DeMarcus is we've always known he's been sort of, like you said, he had a stigma with him. I think he kind of bought into that success this year. So I would go ahead and bring him back and see if we could make that happen, contrary to what Kevin says.
With the max, though?
I think he knows they have a future. He might try to give a little hometown discount. I mean, he's been with a terrible organization already.
Right.
So now you're at the point where your DeMarcus is what, 25, 26.
He didn't buy in this shit. He was trying to buy into a contract. That motherfucker crazy.
But you risk going to another team like Sacramento.
Or Atlanta, who's got $40 million. Dallas has $53 million in cap space. Indiana, by the way, quick detour. Indiana has about $40 million in cap space.
Won't he?
So
Yeah, but who wants to play in Indiana?
they showed improved this season.
They did.
I'll pass.
The hottest topic, Matt Patricia. We're around here watching the NBA playoffs, minding our own business,
Welcome to
NHL
Detroit.
playoffs. And then all of a sudden, there's a news story that pops up about head coach Matt Patricia 22 years ago not deciding, I should say, but there were charges that were so strong, in fact, that a grand jury indicted him in Texas, him and another friend, of sexual assault. The story broke. The case went away because the victim decided not to cooperate and to testify.
Cut that check.
And so the first question that I have is, and by all accounts, Detroit said they didn't know anything about it. They asked the New England Patriots about it. New England Patriots said they didn't know anything about it. How could a rocket scientist, Kevin,
a sort of rapist?
A rapey.
the rapey rocket scientist, according to Devin, how could he not be smart enough to speak to this during his interview process?
Well, his justification was, well, I'm innocent and there were no charges and I wasn't convicted, so why bring it up? And I guess his thinking is, don't ask, don't tell.
I'm white.
It's especially in today's culture, I feel, and this is the biggest job of your career, I feel like you kind of got to be like, hey, oh, by the way, I got arrested for something, 20-something years ago. But I think the bigger question is, how didn't the Lions find this guy? Is this not part of y'all protocol?
But Kev, no one knew about it. He's in. How many jobs has he had?
22. Well, he's only had one job. He got in early with the Patriots.
I don't know if the Patriots did that. I don't believe the Patriots did.
But he wasn't he a graduate assistant at the school that he had the alleged incident?
Yes.
So they didn't know about it? And he was a senior on the football team?
Hey, maybe he rocket science his way out of it. I don't know.
It smells of privilege.
White
privilege. I do see here that the Lions disclosed that their background checks look only for criminal convictions. And he wasn't convicted.
He was just indicted.
I'm not letting him off the hook.
He was just indicted. All right.
Well,
man, the NFL brought in Robert Mueller to look at Tom Brady's phone records. Like, come on, son.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
If they want to find something, they can find it.
Exactly.
All right, time for Black versus Blue. First up, the Rockets They beat the Golden State Warriors 2 out of 3 times in the regular season. They going up against them in the Western Conference Finals. Is it hope or hype that the Houston Rockets have the blueprint to beat the Golden State Warriors? Dev?
This is hype, and this is a gentleman's sweep.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's a strong statement.
Really?
Please,
Yes.
Elise, cut that. I think it's hype just because I don't think there is a blueprint per se, but it's hopeful that they match up well enough against them, and so we'll see. I don't think there's a blueprint to beat the Warriors because I think the style of basketball they play is how basketball is meant to be played. I just think you just got to line them up, and if you match up well, then we'll see what happens. And they do match up well against them. I think this series will be decided by what happens between the ears versus what happens on the court.
Yeah, I think if anything, though, Houston does have at least the roster, the closest roster to beat them in terms of depth and style of play. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to fall into the trick that every team falls into, thinking that they can run and shoot with Golden State, when in reality, that's not their key to winning. They play defense, they move the ball, they get easy shots, they get buckets at the rim. I think Houston's going to try to fall into that game where James Harden's got to shoot 15, 20 threes and try to keep them in the game, and that's where you lose at this team. But 5, Devin, that's a little
Gentleman's
hard
sweep.
for me to
At this time of the year, there's 2 things you can count on. CP3 choking and James Harden dying of exhaustion. It will not change, but I think it goes 6 games.
But Kev, was that hope or hype?
That's hype.
It's definitely hype.
If there's a blueprint on how to beat D'Antoni teams. Slow the pace.
All right, hit or flop. No Kyrie Irving in the Eastern Conference Finals. Will that hurt Cleveland more than it will hurt Boston? Kenyon?
Yeah, I think that's a hit. I think that the fact that Kyrie is not playing for Boston, I think, is going to hurt Cleveland because the key to Boston's success, at least offensively, has been ball movement and finding the open man. There's no one person to key on, so everybody's got to play defense. They're going to be stretched thin. This series is going to go longer than people think, and if the Cleveland that was in the first round where it was LeBron and no one else shows up, they will lose.
I would say it's a hit, but a different perspective. The fact that Cleveland, in the sense that he was with Cleveland last year, and they miss him. They need him more than Boston needs them now as the team are currently constructed, because LeBron needs a number 2. And like you just said, it's Michael McDonald and Patty.
On my own, baby.
Look, LeBron is 23-0 in Eastern Conference playoff series since 2011. I mean, I didn't think they could get past Toronto. Toronto's a deeper team than Boston. They may not have the coaching pedigree, but until they beat LeBron, I'm picking LeBron. So I think they might struggle without Kyrie, but at the end of the day, this man is on a mission. He can't wait to lose to Golden State in 5 games.
That is also a
5. Yeah. This next one I think is a travesty. Is it newsworthy or nothing to see here that Brad Stevens, a.k.a. Taylor, got 0 votes for Coach of the Year from his peers? That means other coaches who should know who's a good coach.
Mm-hmm. I say it's nothing to see because we all know how good that man can coach, and he can give a rat's ass, and they're hating.
Yeah, I mean, and for that reason, it's newsworthy. I mean, really? Not 0? None of you?
Well, I say nothing to see because most people who win that award get fired.
Dwayne Casey.
Shady. But nah,
hey,
come on.
If you want to know what the bigger travesty was, Omar, guess who did win one Coach of the Year vote?
Who?
Doc Rivers.
Oh,
he got
what? He got
one vote.
So
and
Doc Rivers got a vote
for yourself.
Doc Rivers got a vote, and Brad Stevens didn't get a vote.
Doc Rivers sucking somebody off, and that's on everything.
Damn,
there's no way.
Put that on everything.
there's no way in the world that should have happened.
That's
you know what it is.
So look, it's 8 coaches. Just so you know, 8 coaches receive votes. Dwayne Casey, of course. Philly's Brett Brown. Houston's Mike D'Antoni. Nate McMillan with the Pacers. Greg Popovich, and your favorite, Doc Rivers.
So
Quinn
not
Snyder.
even- Quinn
and
Snyder?
Terry,
Oh,
and
okay.
Terry Stotts, of course.
Damn.
But yeah, Doc Rivers.
Terry Stotts,
Doc
really?
They got the 3 seed in the West.
Terry Stotts, really?
Think about it though. Think about the outside. Well, this is the peer thing. Never mind. I'm shutting up.
Come on, man.
But
Haters.
What
That's
team can lose their 2 best players and be in the conference finals right now?
no other team, and
No
that's
other
the
team.
argument right there.
That
The
is
no other
problem is
team.
it's a
But-
regular season award, so we can't count that.
but they were the 2 seed, and they lost
Yeah.
their best
I think he
player
should've- he
5
should've
minutes
been-
into the season.
There's, if your peers are voting, there's no way in the world. He either he's hated
That's what
or
That's exactly
he's
what it
being
is.
hated on.
I think it's a coaching fraternity. He's a college guy. He's a younger guy.
and he's killing them. He's
Yeah.
whooping they ass.
He's coaching circles around.
Yeah, he is.
Straight disrespect.
Off the napkins that he got from Denny's.
All right, y'all. We're gonna go into our diplomatic immunity segment where we see what our fans and viewers have contributed and try to answer some questions for you guys. So, Westside Steve, who somehow is a Miami Heat fan, he's gonna have to explain that to us. He wants to know how can the Heat, how can the Miami Heat unload Hassan Whiteside this offseason?
They can't.
He wants to know because he's a big fan. He went how so he can tell Pat.
Oh, he wanted how?
He needs an answer on that.
If no one decides to mess with Dallas and Dallas has to spend, because you know there's a salary floor, so Dallas has $53 million, and they need a center. That really, looking at the teams, that's the only way it could happen. Or Sacramento, and Sacramento's not going to do it because they had Hassan Whiteside before he had money and he was a problem. He's really a problem now with money.
Mm-hmm.
So Dallas Mavericks, what would have to happen is no one decides to go to Dallas. Mark Cuban's got to spend a salary minimum, and then he just calls for a trade with. That's how you do it. So tell Pat to call Mark.
And Damo wants to know, why doesn't the God Queen Serena get the respect she should as an all-time great?
Because she's a woman and she's a black woman.
And she thick.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the sport, they've what's the tall blonde one that they
Kornikova or Sharapova?
the one that didn't win shit.
Sharapova.
Sharapova?
Wait, didn't win
Sharapova,
what? You
yeah,
talking about
yeah.
the ones playing against her?
Yeah, the one that didn't win any big tournament.
Sharapova.
How much money did she make out of tennis? I mean,
All
she
the
was
money.
she was the face. So it's that. I mean, it's they had all kind of comments that she's built like a man. She's not feminine enough.
She was
she's
accused
this.
of doing steroids.
Yeah.
It's only thing that matters is she was the most dominant female. She is the Shaq of tennis. She's the most dominant ever.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to that end, just to take a little bit of a counter position. I mean, the response I would give Damo is according to whom. I think that Serena is looked at as the greatest female tennis player and one of the greatest tennis players ever.
I think what he's talking about is she's not as lauded over or celebrated outside of that small circle.
I
of
think for
other big
somebody
stars.
as good as she is, she gets a lot of hate.
Like Agassi was all over the place. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing Agassi.
Yeah.
He wasn't a quarter of the tennis player that she was.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's called being a female athlete. The sport of tennis, I think, but even if let's say she played basketball, I could see her still being like not having the same amount of recognition. So I just
she'd be playing basketball.
I think it's just but that's my point though. It's just being a female athlete, there's still barriers that need to be broken. Which reminds me, Kevin, and Mother's Day is coming up. Our show,
Yes, sir.
I'm calling it right now. Our show on Tuesday, we're honoring the women.
Let's run that back.
Run that back.
And we got one last one by Mr. Scott Cameron. He wants to know, what will Paul George and LeBron James do this off? Well, we're going to get to LeBron because that conversation will definitely be a debate. But let's just stick with Paul George for now. What should PG-13 do this offseason?
He's already-
Devin, please be unbiased.
Well, he's already done it. Hey, He didn't pull the kids out.
Out of school. They already enrolled in LA school.
He cribbing. He didn't went and got surgery. He changing his tires.
Hey, school don't end till June. It's the beginning of May. Oh, no, we got to go. Pack your shit. We out of here.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
Omar and Kenyon is Laker fans. That's a done deal for y'all?
Yeah.
It's been a done deal.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna use
Go
a
back.
term. I'm gonna use a term you're familiar with. You already.
Go. Ever since him and Brian Shaw was fishing together.
Right.
It's a wrap.
Right.
You ain't got to worry about that.
That's all we got, Kev?
That's all we got. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get out of here for this week. That's our show for today. Thanks for joining us on Confirmation Bias. Again, please visit our website at the League AM, theleagueam.com. I'm sorry, that our handle is at the League AM all across social media. Subscribe to our podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us. Please go on Diplomatic Community and talk your shit on the website. Liking is cool. Sharing is caring. And please let us know if your bias was confirmed. We'll see you Tuesday. Yep.